Before I start this video on me replacing the fuel pump on this VW Golf, I just wanted to say that I should have checked the fuel supply here at this little valve first. This here is the injector rail. I removed the injector rail, and obviously you have to remove the manifold that's sitting on top of it. But you have access to this little valve here, and if you open this valve and you crank your engine, you will see if there is fuel coming out of here. Obviously you have a rag or something to catch the fuel, or a bottle, something where to point it at, but I didn't do that, and I just assumed my fuel pump wasn't pumping. So on the video I removed the fuel pump and I tested it, and it's actually working. And then I came here and checked for the fuel pressure coming out of here, and it was fine. So what was actually happening, it's only two of these injectors were actually spraying fuel. In fact, it was number 3 and number 6 here that were you can see my cardboard here, so when I cranked the engine, these two injectors were working. This is the reason why I ended up removing the fuel rail, but had I done that before, I wouldn't have to had remove the fuel pump, so I could have cut that bit of the work. Nevertheless, I was able to check the fuel pump as well and the condition, because this car has been parked for over 15 years and it was actually in good condition, remarkably in good condition. So you will see that in the video if you're looking at how to change a fuel pump. So in any case, I just wanted to put this to begin with, because if you are sort of fault finding a non-start, the reason I knew this car was starting and it was there was no fuel in it is because I sprayed a little bit of easy start on the intake and the car started. So I knew there was a fuel situation, and I just assumed it was a fuel pump because the car's been parked for 15 years. But it wasn't. The fuel pump was actually, or maybe it was, but I had to get it pumping anyway. And then once it was pumping, it is pumping, only 2 of these were actually injecting, which is why the car doesn't start. But by now I removed all the injectors and cranked the engine again, and all the injectors are now firing. I had to basically remove each injector, disconnected from the cable here, and then there's 2 connectors in there. If you have a 12-volt battery and you sort of flick on it on the injector, if you sort of put the 2 cables, but one of the cables you just do on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. The injectors, all of these 4 of these were kind of dead, and while I was doing that, sort of shocking them, they started working. Once they were working, sprayed some carb cleaner on them, bit of WD-40 and whatnot, and test them again, and they're all now working. So what's left for me to do is I'm gonna change the spark plugs now that I removed the manifold, because getting to those spark plugs can be a bit more difficult with the manifold on, but I think it's still doable. But anyway, I'll do it now, change the spark plugs, and then refit everything and see how we get on. But just wanted to put that before I start this video. So if you do need to change your fuel pump, then you can obviously jump the section to how I remove the fuel pump and tested it. So I put it all back together, and actually removing this manifold is not really that difficult. It's just a matter of removing the bolts that hold the manifold here, which are fairly accessible, and you remove this cover, disconnect the intake here, just a few hoses, and the accelerator, and that the accelerator cable, and that manifold comes out. It's not really that hard, and that's how I managed to get to the injectors, clean them and whatnot. So I can actually tell you that the car now starts and is running, but it hasn't been running for years, so it's got a slight valve sticking there, which needs well, I'm gonna put new oil in the car anyway, and then let it run for a little while, because sometimes you have to wait for that oil to go into the valves. But anyway, let's I'm just gonna show you how the car is running. But the moral of the story, it's don't start removing things until you know what's wrong, because obviously, as I said, I just went straight for the fuel pump, and the fuel pump was actually working when I should have checked for fuel here, and then I would have known that there is an issue with the rail. So let's get the car started so you guys can hear it running. Make sure it's not in gear. Have to do the alarm. Okay, so this has a immobilizer kind of complication there, but anyway. So, car is running. This obviously hasn't been running for a long time. It will need a little bit more TLC, but I just wanted to show you that it's running. Don't really want to force it any more than that. I mean, well, don't really want to have it running until I change the oil. So I'm just gonna disconnect that battery. And so if you are interested in watching how to remove the fuel pump, then you can watch the rest of this video. And another little tip here before I go, if you were removing the spark plugs, these spark plug leads are quite difficult to remove when they've been there a long time. There is a very handy little tool here. I didn't know, but this little tool here is specifically for removing those spark plug leads. And I didn't know it was there, even though it was lingering there for a long time. My friend saw it and it was like, isn't that the tool that we're looking for to remove the spark plugs? Take it out, and it is. So there is a part number in there if you needed one, but you can just look for the spark plug leads removal tool for the VR6, and you will see lots of these. They are maybe 20 pounds, 40 pounds, can be a little bit expensive, but before you go buying one, make sure yours is not sitting there like mine was. So now I'll get you to the video of how to change the or how to remove the fuel pump and check it. Hi there everybody, and welcome to another video. On today's video I have this very old, very special VW VR6. This is a 1993 model, and it's been parked for as long as I remember. So you can see it's been accumulating dust in piles. Now the other day had to be moved and we couldn't start it, so yes, it's been parked for about 15 years and hiding in a corner, so no surprise it didn't start. However, while doing some quick checks, what I did is I just opened the intake hose, sprayed a little bit of easy start, and the car fired. So clearly we have a lack of fuel going into the system, and I can only put that to to the fuel pump. So this is the car. It's a special, it's an ABT model, but anyway, it's a nice car, and unfortunately it's just been sitting here forever. But so I check for voltage coming to the fuel pump here, and there is voltage coming here, so that just leads me to believe that this fuel pump has backed up, and it's happened to many of the cars that I left park for years and years. So no surprises here. Now there is a little cover here with 3 screws that you need to take out, and then obviously you need to remove this connection here, and then we have to remove the fuel lines on this very old fuel pump. Hopefully I think these clamps here probably have been renewed at some point. I don't think these are the original clamps, but I'm not sure, because I don't really know the car that far back. And the key here will be to be able to pull these hoses out, because they're usually quite tight in there, and that's usually a bit of a battle to get them out without breaking anything. And I can't imagine these hoses could be even a bit brittle, because obviously they've been there for a very long time. So that's what I'm going to try to do. So I'm going to try to loosen these hoses and just take them out. Obviously the Jubilee clips are out now, loose, and also you're going to need something like a pair of pliers, screwdriver like this. Put it on the side there, and you're going to need to sort of hit on this with a hammer. So I've got a plastic hammer. I'll be using plastic, no sparks, working with fuel here. Just want to be careful. Also your light here, you can put it on one side and obviously away from anything that relates to fuel. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen those hoses there and see if I can take them out. Okay, removing that hose wasn't as bad as I thought. Just had to sort of wiggle it out in a way. So make sure that clamp is properly loosened. My battery is disconnected, by the way, so I've got no electricity coming anywhere. Right, so what I want to do now is with some pair of pliers like this, is loosen this hose. Okay, so now you've broken it loose. It's gonna be a lot easier to push out, and also if you sort of wiggle it a little bit, you'll be able to push it out a bit easier. Okay, it is coming out. Slowly but surely. Okay, I'll take the clip out. It doesn't need to be there. So these hoses hopefully will be able to push them out of the way. Otherwise, I get that one there and this one here. And now we want to open this. I've already done this a little bit, so it's not going to be too hard. Okay, in there is our fuel pump. This O-ring, well, gasket can come out as well. It's actually in good condition considering the time. Okay, it looks like basically we need to grab it and twist it. It will then become loose. And there it is, one fuel pump out. So this fuel pump, it appears to be in such an amazing condition. Even the wiring hasn't deteriorated. The last time I checked on my BMW, the last time I changed the fuel pump on my BMW, all the wiring here was cracked and completely consumed. All this wiring was completely gone. So I think partly is because there wasn't a lot of fuel in the tank. It was pretty much empty. So I think due to that situation, because this wiring is sitting up, it hasn't been damaged. And which means, I mean, we could just get a pump and replace the pump itself. And or I mean, obviously there'll be pumps out there which are selling the entire unit, which is another option, obviously, just to buy the whole thing. But we'll have to see what's out there and try to go. I guess this here will be the part number on this particular pump. Otherwise, we'll have to check if there is any other part numbers here. But well, we'll see. Hopefully this will get our car going. I think it should. Right, I've got my pump here and I decided to test it before getting a new one or whatever. So what I've done is I just connected two wires. You will clearly see here you have a negative side and a positive. You can see in there, they're marked. So the black one here is positive and the other one is the negative. I've connected that to a power supply that I have for jump starting cars. So I'm gonna switch it on, and sometimes these pumps, they start working when you connect them externally like this. For whatever reason, they start working and you can actually fit them back. So the same happened to the Mini I was working with, an R50, the old style, which I actually have another R50. I need to remove the pump as well because it's not pumping. But anyway, if you then switch it on, what I would recommend is not, if I was connecting these two cables to a battery to test the pump, sometimes when you touch the battery terminal, it creates a spark. So if you were doing that, you can, I would say, use quite long wires like this to a battery. I mean, I have a battery over there, but put it quite a bit away, because that you don't want that spark to, obviously you don't want any sparks anywhere near the pump, because there might be a bit of fuel still in here. And again, I wouldn't connect the cables to the battery and then touch them here, because this can, again, this will cause a spark, and if there is fuel in there, then we have a problem. So in this case, it's fairly safe because it's all connected, and all I have to do is switch this on and see if the pump works. And it's actually working. That pump is actually spraying a bit of fuel. So I'm gonna have to look a little bit more deep into why I didn't. To be fair, I did not check the fuse, but I did have power to the connection that comes here. So that is a bit odd, unless once I remove the pump, it starts working. It's so slow, but it happens. Having said that, I'm quite happy that it's actually working. So I'm gonna fit it back, and then we'll check the feed to here again. I'm going to check the voltage now. The voltage going to that wire. I'm gonna check it again. Just need to point this thing at this thing, I think. Okay, I was using the wrong fob. I found another fob. So let's check this voltage now. At the moment is 0. So I've got my cables connected to the wire at the back, and technically when I put the ignition, we should have some voltage in there. So ignition is on. And there is no voltage going to those cables. So no wonder the car but saying that, when I crank the engine, then there is voltage. There is 10 to 11 volts going there, so that should be pumping. The fuel pump is working, but then again, maybe it wasn't working before, so I'm gonna plug it back in and see what happens. Right, so this is what I've got at the moment. Obviously I got my pump back in there, and that's how I connected this in order to check for voltage. So the two outer cables here are the ones you want to check. The two cables in the middle here are to do with the actual gauge, the fuel gauge. So there isn't a lot of fuel in this tank at the minute. There is a little bit, should be enough to get the car going, and we'll have to give it another go, see if it goes. It obviously needs to prime quite a bit, which is not what is this. Normally when you put the ignition in most cars, it sort of primes, but in this one it seems to be just working when you're cranking. So I may have to get it cranking a little bit longer. To be honest, this car, I haven't really worked on one of these for years. Not really that familiar with it. So we have to just take it one step at a time. I may put in a little bit more fuel, but we'll give it a go at cranking first. But I'm going to tighten these Jubilee clips first, so there's nothing escaping, and put these hoses in properly. So if you got to this point of my video, you may have seen that I didn't have to remove the pump, but do the work on the actual injectors. So having said that, I hope the video helps in any way, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all in the next video. If you have any questions obviously just go ahead and ask me. If I know the answer, I will let you know.